Imagine building a 70-meter skyscraper. You have steel beams, cranes, and heavy machinery, right? Now, erase all of that. Welcome to the Peten jungle over 2,000 years ago, a place often described as a beautiful yet unforgiving green hell. Here, the ancient Maya achieved something that continues to baffle modern engineers. They built towering metropolises hidden beneath the dense canopy. We are talking about thousands of massive step pyramids, temples, and palaces constructed entirely out of solid limestone. To understand this miracle, you must first understand the nightmare of their environment. This was not a flat, predictable desert. The Maya built their world in a suffocating rainforest, surrounded by venomous snakes, jaguars, and relentless tropical diseases. They had no beasts of burden, no horses, no oxen, not even a single pack animal to help carry the crushing loads. And the wheel? They actually knew about it. They made wheeled toys for their children. But in a thick, muddy jungle, a wheel is completely useless. It would just sink into the swampy earth or get destroyed by massive tree roots. So, they relied on the only engine they had, human muscle. Pure, relentless human manpower organized with terrifying efficiency. But the most shocking fact? They carved these megastructures without ever touching a single piece of iron or steel. They were technically a Stone Age society. Yet they constructed the Ladanta Pyramid at El Mirador. It has a total volume of 2.8 million cubic meters. That makes it significantly larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. How do you move millions of tons of rock through a deadly forest with nothing but bare hands and clever math? The answer lies beneath the soil. It is a story of incredible geology, blood, sweat, and a few brilliant magic tricks. Limestone is the absolute secret ingredient of the Maya world, a material that behaves unlike any other rock on Earth. Deep under the jungle floor, the massive limestone bedrock is naturally saturated with underground water, keeping it completely damp. When it is freshly exposed to the air, it is incredibly soft and porous. You can carve it almost like thick clay. The Maya did not need iron pickaxes. They used harder local stones like chert to easily slice right through the soft bedrock. But here is the real magic trick of the jungle. Once the wet limestone block is pulled out and baked in the tropical sun, it undergoes a rapid chemical reaction. The water evaporates, and the block hardens into a solid, virtually unbreakable rock. They were literally pulling soft, moldable puzzle pieces from the earth and watching them naturally turn into solid concrete. But what about fine carving? Without metal chisels or steel tools, how did they create such intricate and beautiful details on their temples? They turned to obsidian, a glossy black volcanic glass traded across the empire. It is a material so deadly and precise that its cutting edge can be up to 500 times sharper than a modern steel surgical scalpel used in hospitals today. At a microscopic level, obsidian fractures down to a single molecule in thickness. It slices through hard materials with terrifying, effortless ease. Armed with these razor-sharp glass blades, Maya artisans could carve complex hieroglyphs, intricate calendars, and royal faces with absolute perfect precision. They were not disadvantaged by living in the Stone Age. Instead, they had completely mastered the hidden properties of the stones around them. So the cutting problem was elegantly solved. They now had millions of perfectly shaped, hardened limestone blocks ready to be assembled. But now they faced a much bigger nightmare. How do you move a 2-ton block across a dense, muddy jungle without a single cart? To move millions of tons of limestone without wheels or beasts of burden, the Maya engineered the most efficient machine of the ancient world: the human body. Specifically, a simple woven strap called a tumpline, worn straight across the forehead. By placing the strap on the forehead, the massive weight is bypassed from the weak arms and transferred directly down the spine. The spine is the strongest pillar of the human skeleton. This simple trick allowed a single Maya worker to carry astonishingly heavy loads. But for a megastructure puzzle piece weighing 2 or 3 tons, a single person was never enough. They needed a synchronized human conveyor belt. Maya architects organized their labor forces with terrifying military precision. Every pull, every step was perfectly timed to chants or rhythmic drum beats. This ensured the massive stone moved fluidly, as if carried by one giant creature. They placed smooth, debarked tree trunks beneath the blocks. These acted as a rolling track over the treacherous, root-filled jungle floor. But dragging this up a steep, rain-soaked pyramid slope was a deadly game. One slip, and the colossal stone would slide backward, crushing everyone in its path. If the hemp ropes snapped, there was no safety net. The sheer physical toll on these workers was unimaginable. Yet, despite the horrors of the green hell, block by block, day after day, the skyscraper pyramids slowly rose from the earth. It took a dedicated team of up to 20 men dragging thick hemp ropes just to inch a single megastructure puzzle piece into place. Now, multiply that back-breaking effort by the millions of stones required to build a sprawling city like Tikal or El Mirador. This wasn't just construction. It was the ultimate display of absolute power by the godlike Maya kings. Controlling the stone meant controlling the people. But these kings didn't want boring gray stone mountains. They wanted their pyramids to shine like the blazing sun, and achieving that brilliant color would cost them their empire. To the Maya kings, a bare gray limestone pyramid was an unfinished eyesore. They demanded a smooth, gleaming surface painted in blood red. To achieve this, they needed stucco, a type of lime plaster. Making it required heating limestone in enormous kilns to alter its chemistry. But a massive fire requires massive fuel. The Maya had to cut down the very jungle that sustained them, using stone axes. The environmental math was brutal. To produce just 1 single ton of limestone plaster, they had to burn up to 20 tons of fresh green wood. It was an ecological disaster driven by ego. With the plaster ready, they coated the rough stone pyramids until they were perfectly smooth, and then painted them a brilliant, blinding terracotta red. Imagine standing in the jungle 2 millennia ago. You wouldn't see ancient gray ruins. You would see towering, blood-red mountains gleaming in the sun. But to build these monuments to the gods, they destroyed the environment. Millions of trees were burned. The jungle canopy was gone. Without the trees to trap moisture, the local climate changed. Temperatures spiked. The rains stopped falling. The apocalyptic droughts began. Desperate to appease the angry sky gods, the kings climbed to the top of their artificial mountains to perform sacred rituals. These pyramids were not just monuments. They were massive astronomical clocks. They aligned perfectly with the solstices and equinoxes. On specific days, the interplay of light and shadow would create the illusion of a giant serpent slithering down the steps to Earth. The kings promised that their cosmic architecture and offerings would control the weather. But nature didn't care. The sky remained relentlessly blue. Millions had slaved to build the greatest cities on Earth, only to abandon them to the jungle when the water ran out. But some refused to die in the drought. If the sky wouldn't give them water, they would have to carve their way down into the terrifying underworld to find it. The Yucatan Peninsula is essentially a giant limestone sponge. Over millions of years, rainwater ate through the rock, creating massive underground caverns. When the ceiling of one of these caverns collapses, it reveals a cenote, a natural sinkhole exposing the pure, fresh groundwater below. For cities built near these sinkholes, like Chichen Itza, water was abundant. They literally had giant, natural freshwater wells right in their backyard. But what about massive megacities like Tikal, built on high ground, miles away from any natural rivers or cenotes? How did they survive the dry season? The Maya architects invented a brilliant solution. If there were no natural underground caves, they would just carve their own. These artificial, bottle-shaped underground cisterns were called choltons. Workers dug deep into the soft limestone bedrock, but porous limestone leaks water like a sieve. Ironically, they solved this using the exact same material that caused the deforestation: stucco plaster. By thickly plastering the inside of the cholton, they created a massive, waterproof underground bottle. Now, they just had to fill it. This is where the Maya showed their true engineering genius. The massive city plazas weren't perfectly flat. They were paved with a slight, imperceptible tilt. When the seasonal monsoons finally hit, the entire city center acted as a gigantic funnel, directing millions of gallons of clean rainwater straight into the mouths of the waiting choltons. The smooth plaster ensured not a single drop was absorbed back into the thirsty earth. A single cholton could hold up to 30,000 liters of water, enough to sustain an entire Maya family through months of scorching drought. In grand cities like Tikal, they took this even further, damming local ravines to create massive open-air reservoirs holding millions of gallons. But stagnant, open water in a tropical jungle quickly becomes toxic with bacteria and algae. Yet, the Maya didn't get sick. Why? Because long before modern science, the Maya had invented the world's first advanced water filtration system, using a crystal-clear magic trick. Recent archaeological discoveries at the Corriental Reservoir in Tikal revealed something impossible: a massive water filter built with quartz and a special mineral called zeolite. Zeolite acts as a natural molecular sieve. The Maya imported it from miles away to line the entrances of their drinking reservoirs. These minerals don't just trap dirt. They actually strip harmful heavy metals from the water and trap deadly cyanobacteria at a microscopic level. This kept the standing reservoir water pristine, sweet-tasting, and perfectly safe for the population to drink year-round. The crazy part? Zeolite filtration was supposedly invented by modern science in the early 20th century. The Maya had it 2,000 years earlier. So they had engineered water. But to run an empire of millions, you need food, a lot of it. And here lies their second nightmare. You might think a lush rainforest is the perfect place to grow crops. It isn't. The jungle soil is notoriously thin and nutrient-poor. If you clear the jungle to farm, the heavy tropical rains quickly wash the fragile topsoil away, leaving behind nothing but hard, infertile rock. It is an ancient farmer's absolute worst nightmare. So how did they feed millions of citizens and massive standing armies when traditional farming was mathematically impossible? Once again, they completely re-engineered nature. They turned to the one place nobody else wanted to go: the vast, mosquito-infested swamps. Instead of fighting the dry rock, they waded into the deep wetlands. They began digging extensive grids of drainage canals and took that incredibly rich, nutrient-dense swamp muck, piling it high to create elevated planting platforms, known as raised fields. This brilliant grid system provided endless natural irrigation from the canals and incredibly fertile soil on top. It was an agricultural miracle. They could harvest multiple crops a year. But this perfect machine of nature and science had one fatal flaw, and it would doom them all. The entire Maya survival machine had one terrifying vulnerability. It relied completely and utterly on predictable seasonal rainfall to function. When a severe multi-decade drought hit the Mesoamerican region around the 9th century, the delicate system shattered. And remember the millions of trees they burned just to paint their pyramids red? That obsession made the disaster exponentially worse. Modern science confirms that their massive deforestation drastically reduced local rainfall and spiked temperatures, creating a man-made ecological nightmare. Without rain, the brilliant raised fields dried into dust. The massive underground cisterns turned into useless, empty stone bowls. There was no food, there was no water, and you cannot drink limestone no matter how brilliantly it is carved or painted. The god kings, who claimed to communicate with the heavens and control the weather, suddenly lost their divine authority. Cities that once flawlessly housed hundreds of thousands of people descended into chaos, starvation, and desperate warfare over the last drops of water. The Maya didn't mysteriously vanish into thin air or get abducted by aliens. They simply made a practical, heartbreaking choice. They packed up and walked away from the greatest skyscraper cities of the ancient world, dispersing to areas near lakes and coastal regions. Without constant human maintenance to slash back the vegetation, the relentless jungle immediately began its counterattack. The brilliant terracotta red stucco cracked, peeled, and washed away, exposing the gray limestone bedrock beneath. Massive tree roots drove themselves into the dry masonry, shattering the perfectly carved steps and tearing the megastructure puzzles apart. In just a few centuries, the green hell swallowed the metropolis whole, transforming towering skyscrapers into what looked like natural forested hills. But the jungle could only hide the stones. It could never erase the absolute genius of the people who built them from mud and sweat. Because their grand cities were found abandoned, a popular internet myth claims the Maya mysteriously vanished or were abducted by aliens. The truth is far less sci-fi, but much more resilient. They simply migrated to areas with more stable water sources, like lakes and coastal regions. The Maya civilization never disappeared. Today, there are over 6 million Maya descendants living across Central America and around the world. They are doctors, teachers, and engineers, and they still speak more than 20 different Mayan languages, keeping their ancestors' voices alive. When we look at the breathtaking ruins of Tikal or Chichen Itza today, it is easy to view them just as ancient tourist attractions, but they are much more than that. They are the ultimate proof of what humanity can achieve when pushed to the absolute limits of survival. Without wheels or beasts of burden, they turned the human spine into the most efficient cargo engine in history. Without iron or steel, they used volcanic glass to carve masterpieces with microscopic precision. They weaponized the jungle's geology, turning soft mud into rock-solid skyscrapers through simple evaporation. And they invented molecular water filters thousands of years before modern science even knew what a bacteria was. Their only mistake was believing they could outsmart the sky. By destroying their forests to paint their world red, they sealed their own fate. Yet the stones remain, a lasting monument to a civilization that refused to let a deadly jungle dictate its limits. The Maya didn't just survive the green hell. For 2 millennia, they completely conquered it, proving that you don't need modern technology to build the impossible. You just need human ingenuity. What other impossible ancient mysteries should we decode next? Let us know in the comments, and stay curious.